Okay, we're going to have a look at the Butler model, which shows how a tourist area or tourist resort develops over time. You will be familiar, I'm sure, with the shape as the tourist area develops up to a point of stagnation, at which point it might decline. Numbers of tourists going to that place might go down, or indeed they may put measures in place, improve things to attract other tourists and rejuvenate the tourist resort. Two things to point out. If you're ever asked to draw this diagram or to label this in an exam, you need to know these key terms and what they mean. We're not going to go into that today in too much depth other than to apply it to Blackpool. But also you need to know about the axes. So you've got the number of tourists on the y-axis and time on the x-axis. So what we're going to do is have a look at how this model fits with that of Blackpool. And I'm going to use a number of pictures in order to do that. The first picture we're going to have a quick look at is this one here, which is an image showing the Victorian period of Blackpool's development, right down at the beginning, when only the wealthy would be coming, the number of tourists relatively small back in those times, but the beginning of Blackpool's development. As Blackpool began to develop, a number of things occurred. First thing was the trains that enable people to get there. The train line from the cities of Manchester and so on enabled people easier access into Blackpool, so that was one of the reasons for the development. And then the development of other attractions like the Blackpool Tower and the Winter Gardens, the illuminations and so on that you'd be familiar with were what led to development. However, in the 60s and after the 60s, air travel became cheaper, and budget airlines like Ryanair enabled people to travel to south of France, to Europe and so on, where they were guaranteed sun. And compared with Blackpool, where the weather wasn't always brilliant, this led to numbers beginning to level off and perhaps decrease as people with increased incomes were able to travel further afield. With that came the problems that led to the decline of Blackpool. And one of the features you can see on this photo, there's all sorts of things wrong in this photo, but this represents some of the issues that came to light during the decline stage of Blackpool. Antisocial behaviour, stag do's and hen do's saw it as a cheap destination, as hotels had to cut their prices to try and attract people along, and it became a bit of a venue for the stag and hen do crowds, leading to decline. The standards dropped, the quality of the hotels, there was not much reinvestment into it, and so over time it was in decline. So what could they do? They have to rejuvenate if they're going to see jobs maintained, see the area improve. And in 2000, huge amounts of money invested in a range of different things. First thing that was done was to get a company like Merlin, who we know in charge of Madame Tussauds and Alton Towers and so on. Merlin came in and improved a lot of the facilities. They built a Madame Tussauds in Blackpool with the usual familiar characters that you might be aware of. There's Bear Grylls, bit of geography in there. So there's Madame Tussauds that people can go to. And again, rejuvenation is about attracting new people back to Blackpool and increasing the number of tourists. Another thing that they did was, off the back of Strictly Come Dancing, 12 million people watched the final last year. They got Strictly Come Dancing to get into the Blackpool ballroom at the bottom of the tower. That as well has helped with the rejuvenation. However, huge investment in the seafront area of Blackpool. Now you see here the promenade, which they've widened. They've put in these kind of Spanish steps going down to the beach to create a space for people to sit for open air activities and festivals. And two things that go on: there's an air festival that occurs in Blackpool every summer, with the Red Arrows and so on, and it's provided a great venue for people to sit and see that, and attracted huge numbers. And then you can see over on this side of the promenade, this is what's called the Tower Festival Headland, and it's a place that's brilliant as a concert venue, outside concert venue. So for gigs, this is, I think Elton John did a massive open air gig there on that venue. And during the iFest in Blackpool last year, the Vamps, I know some of you youngsters like that band, they opened on the Friday night that weekend festival, which is in conjunction with the turning on of the illuminations, which is another of the attractions. So 300 million spent on the rejuvenation, 17 million spent on the festival venue and the promenade alone, as well as attracting all of these new industries, Merlin, in to rejuvenate Blackpool. So we would say now Blackpool, having gone through the Butler model, through that period of decline, is doing its absolute best to rejuvenate. So use that in your exam if you've got any questions about the Butler model and applying one place in the UK to it. Okay, thanks very much.